Hello, everyone. I'm here for one of my stories. This is Lindsay Dunn, and today I am excited to be able to bring you a Cobra Kai Season 5 review. So I will be reviewing the whole season in general and won't be revealing any specific plot points, but I just want to get you fired up for what to expect. I'm going to start with the overall plot of the season. So the worst has happened. The battle for the soul of the valley has ended with Cobra Kai hailing as grand champions. Daniel and Johnny have no choice but to close Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang dojos. Johnny has other fish to fry. He's promised Carmen that he will find Miguel, who has fled to Mexico in search of his father. Johnny takes Robbie along, hoping for some father-son bonding time and also maybe to heal the chasm between these two teenagers. Defeat does not exist in Miyagi-Do, however. Daniel calls in his enemy turned ally, Chosen, to see if they can take down Cobra Kai through the back channels. Daniel has to close Miyagi-Do, but that doesn't mean he can't try to bite off the head of the snake a different way. Meanwhile, Kreese is now in prison and is determined to get out on good behavior early. So that is the overall synopsis of the season, but of course, there's much more that we could go into. Since I'm not doing any spoilers or specific plot points, I want to just give you some heads up about my thoughts about the season and what you should be expecting. So the first thing I want to go through is some of the characters that I want you to keep your eye on and that I think were especially important in this season. So, of course, the show, let's just get off the top with our two leads, that being Johnny and Daniel. So, Johnny he's always going to be Johnny in that he is going to be doing endearing things that you would expect. So that includes him versus versus the digital age and social media and all those things. He gets into that. He also gets into the pawn shop and trying to sell some items, but Johnny is continuing his arc of just being an endearing character that we know he has sincerity, he has heart. He wants to do what's best. He wants to do what's right. He's sorry for the things that he's done in the past, especially his relationship with Miguel. He doesn't want to let him down, and he knows that he kind of blew it at the end of the last season in that he wasn't maybe being the best sensei that he could have been, sensei / semi-stepfather to Miguel. Instead of putting him first, he kind of put his dojo first and was like, I need you to man up and fight even though your back is hurting. And did that mean that Miguel would have not gone to see his father? Maybe not. I mean, he still had that journey to take. He was feeling that in the moment, but Johnny feels like he kind of blew it. And of course, he has his feelings about Robbie, the guilt that he carries from not being a good dad, which is a big part of the things that are pushing him about how he interacts with Miguel, is the way that he feels he failed. Well, that he did fail Robbie, not just that he feels. And so Johnny has that continuing, trying to find his new self in being sort of a more reliable family man now. He has Carmen, he has his own son, he has Miguel to worry about, and he's going to be diving deeper into what it means to be a father, what it means to be a good partner to Carmen, what it means to be a sensei. This is all what he's still figuring out. We have to remember that Johnny was never a sensei. He was a student. He was the #1 student of Cobra Kai. He was the superstar. And so for him to be in a role of I'm mentoring somebody. This is all new to him. He's never done it before. And he's never had that modeled. He had that, his model for that has been Kreese, which we know is not a good model. And so, Daniel had Mr. Miyagi that was a good mentor to him. He had that example. Johnny is truly doing this on his own, and he's making mistakes along the way, getting bruises and bumps, bumping up against his students, bruising them slightly, but he always comes back to that. I want to do better. I want to be better. And we're just going to see him continuing in that arc. Daniel, we know that there are issues with Daniel. In the Karate Kid movies, he was painted as the hero, even though, let's face it, as he went along in the first movie, he was he was picked on, and so we had that sympathy for him. He was the new kid, he was the outsider, he was the underdog, and everybody loves to root for an underdog. But as 2 went along and 3, he started to rebel more against Mr. Miyagi and sort of making one mistake after the other, if we have to be honest. And he was sort of, the thing that was frustrating was he kept making the same mistakes over and over again. So that being, he's impetuous, he rushes into things, he doesn't always think through the consequences. He's a real Peter. If you look at the 12 disciples that followed Jesus, Peter was always the one that was the first to arrive. He rushed in, but sometimes his mouth got a little ahead of himself. And so Daniel sometimes rushes into things and doesn't really take the time to listen. He feels something that he needs to do. He knows he needs to do it right now. He cannot wait. And so Daniel is, he also, so he has, in his mind, he has been kind of the good one, the one that was wronged, the one that was the victim of people like Johnny, of people like Kreese, of people like Silver. So for him, in his mind, he was always the good guy. We know that everybody always says, everybody thinks they're the hero of their own story. And so Daniel is realizing, maybe as things go along, that, we saw him at the end of season 4. He apologized to Johnny and kind of said, hey, listen, now I see that some of the lessons, you could tell it almost really pained him to see it. Some of the things you teach are good. He finally had to realize that. And he had sort of a moment of humble pie. So in this season, we are going to continue to see that, him growing. And so I believe in this season, you'll see Daniel really come into his own, really, blossom in the way that Mr. Miyagi always said that he would. He said that he had strong roots and that Miyagi had faith in him, and that if you have these strong roots, the tree will survive. He never said the tree will flourish, but that's the idea here. So both of these characters are continuing to be strong, and one of the things that is the strongest about them is they start to see how they can benefit each other and how they can learn from each other and help one another. And so that is very strong in this season, is their partnership reaching a new level. We also have the other characters I want you to really keep your eye on are Anthony. Anthony is such an interesting character. He was in the first 3 the 3 seasons of Cobra Kai. He was really sidelined. He was kind of made a joke of. He was like the overweight kid playing video games. And what was interesting was, back then you were thinking, what is this character's purpose besides just to be the annoying child that is not Sam? So we have that last season, being season 4, we had Anthony he shed some of the weight, which isn't the most important thing, but we saw him that he was turning into a bully, and they sort of hinted at that maybe their parents were responsible because they had been neglecting him. He was left to his own. Now, he was a huge brat, um, and just kind of sat around and didn't want to talk to anybody, and all he wanted to do was play his games. But he was allowed to do that. We saw several times where Daniel didn't really stand up to him. He just sort of said, "Oh, well, that's just Anthony," and kind of left him to his devices. And then they finally had the wake-up call where they realized their son was the one that was the bully. He wasn't being bullied. And so Anthony is at this interesting moment now where he tried to apologize to Kenny, and then he got beat up. And so he's and Daniel tried to teach him, and he didn't really do the car washing lesson. So Anthony's kind of a tough nut to crack, but I think in this season we see Anthony play a particularly interesting role. And since there's going to be a season 6, that's probably going to continue. But keep your eyes on Anthony. Likewise, his opponent is Kenny. So Kenny also was a really great character in the last role. He started out as being this very sympathetic character, and over time, his being in Cobra Kai, he started to for him, it was that he needed to be strong. He needed to be stronger so that he could stand up against the bullies. And in his mind, Anthony was a bully, and he was a bully. It wasn't just in his mind. But in order to stop him from being bullied, the solution became violence. And so Kenny is in this interesting role where he doesn't have his father to look out for him. He doesn't have his brother to look out for him. And he had sort of latched on to Robbie, but Robbie has now taken off and is not interested in being with Cobra Kai anymore. And so now, where is Kenny gonna go next? And I think what they do with his character is also very interesting. So keep an eye on him. And then we have Tori, who is another very complex character. She was Sam's bully. And then we got to see in season 4 that she needs help. She has issues at home. She has a difficult home life. And she's been trying to do things on her own. And so maybe that's why Cobra Kai appealed to her, because it gave her a place where she could be around adults, where she's at home she's basically the caretaker at home of her sibling and her mom, who is apparently very ill. And so she doesn't really have anybody she can rely on. And when she was in Cobra Kai, she came to rely on Kreese. Now, during the tournament, she was super happy. You saw at the end, she had this real smile on her face. And then she finds out that, the only reason that she won was because Terry Silver paid off this referee. And so it's just like, what is she going to do with that information now? And is she going to confront Silver or not? Is she going to stand against him, or will she be like, hey, it's fine that I got this advantage because I've been so disadvantaged. So she truly could have gone in either way, but I think in the last season, they set her up to have a very strong season this time. Next, I want to talk about Chosen. Everybody is super excited about Chosen being in this season 5, and that is, you have every reason to be excited about Chosen's role. That there's all of this hype, all of this feelings about him being kind of the next Mr. Miyagi, the one that inherited teachings as much as Daniel got to absorb. Chosen became a Miyagi master during his time and knew even more secrets of Miyagi-Do than Daniel did. And so now in this time, we almost get to see Chosen in some ways. Nobody's ever going to replace Mr. Miyagi, but Chosen has he has the training of Miyagi-Do, but he also has the aggressive training that he had from Sato. And so he has a really interesting, I shouldn't say strange, just a really interesting mix of qualities and styles he's learned. And in some ways, he's kind of can be that bridge between Daniel and Johnny that makes him perhaps an even stronger fighter. He almost is the representation of Daniel and Johnny combined. So the just the way they use Chosen this season is truly remarkable, and I believe you're all going to love it. Next would be Terry Silver. Terry Silver is one of these characters, even in Karate Kid 3, he was, in some ways, he was so laughable, but he was also so memorable. Even then, he loves what he does 100%. He just really gets into it. And as great as Terry Silver was last season, this season he is on fire. And I don't know if they put some extra stuff in his juice or what, but he is truly just somebody to watch for sure. And I will say, if you've ever, one of my favorite scenes from Silver from the Karate Kid movies is when he's in the steam bath on the giant cell phone, and there's sort of an homage to that comes in season 5, but it's very subtle. But if you've ever wanted to see Terry Silver's steam bath 2.0, this is your opportunity. And lastly, of course, we always need to keep an eye on Kreese. Martin Kove as Kreese is just, he's this time, we all know he's in prison. And so we get to see him in a new environment. Every time he talks about he's brewmating, and he's trying to get his bearings in his new place, and he's just always somebody that's interesting to watch, especially when he's in a new place, because he doesn't always go in guns blazing. He kind of checks out the scenario and tentatively, he starts out things tentatively, and then as he gets more comfortable, he'll show his true colors. He's a little bit like my cat. My cat does this too. When you first meet my cat, he seems very sweet, very shy, very, kind and cuddly. But as soon as you get comfortable, that's when he might give you a little love nip. And of course, that's not to say these are just the standout characters to me. That is not to say that there aren't great moments for all the characters, but for me, those were the standouts to really keep an eye on, and that had me screaming and cheering. What to expect from season 5 beyond these great performances? Like I said, Johnny and Daniel are just going to become even stronger assets to one another, and that goes without saying. We love these enemies to friends. We just love to see them interact. They always have, every season has a time when they go out together, they have a misunderstanding, they make up. So there's definitely some return to form that happens with that. So the things that you love about Daniel and Johnny, they are not going anywhere. Things you love about them together. We have new team ups. Cobra Kai, Karate Kid is always famous for having people who have never worked together coming together, and it's like a nice little fruit salad. You've got a little of this character over here, a little of this character here. They come together, and all of a sudden, it's magical fruit salad that tastes really good. That wouldn't be as good as the two things are separately. So we have new people working together. That is just a delight. The fights are next level in this season. As great, I always think that Cobra Kai has had great fights. I loved the school cafeteria when Miguel kicks Kyler's butt. I love the way they did the tournament in the first season, and even the food court fight between Robbie and Sam and Hawk. That was great. In season 4, the way they handled the tournament, you can just tell the budget has increased so they could just do more stuff. The tournament in season 4 was awesome. Season 5 tops that. It goes beyond, and there are at least 2 fights that, as I watched them, I got so emotional that I started crying. Not in because anything sad was happening, but I could just tell as the fight scene started, I just got overwhelmed with how amazing it was that it's like something is on the screen and it's beyond anything you could have imagined, and something you've been waiting for so long that when it happens, it's almost too much. And I had to stop it and collect myself, rewind it, and start it again. And I'm getting emotional right now, even still talking about it. There are many fights, but there are at least 2 that are cry worthy because they're so awesome. I had to stop, I had to rewind it, and I've gone back and watched these particular fight scenes multiple times. And it's just like seeing something on screen that you have always wanted. And one of them is something I've always wanted. The other is something that I never knew would be possible, and it is what I wanted, but I didn't realize it. And I know you guys know what I mean by that. Oh, and the other thing that's cool about this season is the fights make use of weapons we have not seen before in Cobra Kai. So that's something to look for. We have callbacks to the movies, of course. I did a whole article on this where I showed scenes from Cobra Kai, but mostly Karate Kid 2 and 3. There are scenes and quotes that are repeated in this season, and they're homages to the movies that the big 3 always puts in there. So that's always fun. Is, for example, we had the give him the body bag from the movie, and then that is repeated in Cobra Kai. So that happens many times. If you want to see a list of that, I'll put the link in the description for this video. So we do have a lot of that, and there's a lot that I could not put in that article. I just included 9 things, but there are many costume callbacks and outfits even, but trying to explain those. The way I did it was I didn't give spoilers, but I said, remember this scene from the movie? Remember it because it's going to kind of show up in the show, but you don't really know how exactly it is going to show up. But it was just like, these are the scenes you should review and make sure that you think about, because they are going to come about. The other thing that's really interesting is that storytelling is used a lot as a fuel for legacy, and just as a warning, something important is happening. Mr. Miyagi did this in the second Karate Kid when he says, once there was a man named Shimpo Sensei, and he is, a story is a way to bring somebody into your world and to share your philosophy about the world and the things that are driving you and fueling you. Now, some people use storytelling as a way to welcome somebody into their way of thinking. Some people use storytelling as a warning and as a way to drive fear into your heart. And so we have both of those uses are done in this season. So look out for the stories that people tell, because it's interesting that storytelling is used, because that creates the feeling of myth and generations, things that have been happening for long before any of us were here. And so there are particular characters that really, the stories that you tell yourself and that drive you have such a big impact on the way people operate. And so look out for the stories. There's a theme of followers becoming leaders. And that shows up in several ways and in different characters' arcs. But there are some people in this show that have taken a follower role. Sometimes that's because I shouldn't, yeah, it happens for many reasons. Sometimes there are people that feel vulnerable and scared. And so the way they take care of that is they latch on to somebody who is stronger than you, and they tend to be behind that person. And so what happens there is you don't fully make your own decisions about things. You kind of look to the other person to take the lead. So even remember in the first Karate Kid, we had Johnny and Bobby and Tommy, and then we find out in, I believe it's season 2 of Cobra Kai, that Tommy actually had a crush on Allie, but because Johnny came in and was confident, he ended up dating Allie. Tommy ended up following Johnny, and so he didn't act on his feelings because his more confident, best friend came in and got the girl. So there's sort of that history, those kinds of things happen in the show sometimes. We're going to see some characters that have been in a follower role, either getting or trying to step up and become more of a leader. We also have a further exploration of the dynamic between Kreese and Silver to place his actions towards Kreese in context. In the Miyagi-verse so far, it's always been the assumption that Silver is so grateful to Kreese, because that's what we saw in the movies. He in Karate Kid 3, he Kreese comes to Silver when he's down and out, and he's going to retire, and he returns the keys to the Cobra Kai dojo, and Terry says, no, never mind, you're going, even though he didn't have any tuition, he is just going to send Kreese to Tahiti, and so that he can get massages. And he is kind of so grateful to Kreese for saving his life. And then Kreese comes to him and wants to kind of call in that favor, and Silver initially tells him no, and then he gets evil Silver again, gets the ponytail back, and starts to take on that role again. And then he ended up, flipping the script and getting Silver arrested. Now, our assumption was the way that they played it, or the way that it came across in the season, is that the reason Silver did that is because he was upset that Kreese had sort of sided with Johnny against Silver, and he was telling Silver, you need to remember your place and not challenge me. And so the two of them were having sort of a lover's tiff right then, and he ended up sending Kreese to prison. And that was, I guess, for some people that might have been no surprise at all. I tend to be easily surprised by things. I didn't really see that coming, I guess, because I was still under the impression that Silver is really grateful to Kreese for saving his life. But it's kind of like in White Christmas when Danny Kaye, I guess, pointed at his arm a few too many times, and then Bing Crosby gets tired of it and is trying to get him married off so that he will stop trying to set him up with different women. But we're not talking about White Christmas, we're talking about Cobra Kai. But Kreese always is saying, ever since I saved your life. So he's always bringing that up, and Silver gets kind of tired of it and kind of wants to get Kreese out of the way. So we are going to see more of their friendship and what happened happened before Karate Kid 3. And so that's an interesting thing to see come about. We also have some long-standing comeuppance come about. This show loves to, well, I don't know if they love to, but one thing that happens is a lot of times in real life, you don't always have justice come about. There are people that get away with things, and they're able to just keep going with that. Think about in the last season, we had Anthony and his friends were picking on Kenny, and you were like, is anybody going to stop this from happening? And they were just picking on him ruthlessly, and they were getting away with it. And in this show, I will say there are particular characters that have been able to get away with being awful for some time, and some of those characters finally have their comeuppance, which is, as you can imagine, very sweet. We also have new lessons of things to learn. And when you think back about it, that we haven't had that in a while. In Cobra Kai season 2, well, in 1 and 2, when Johnny and Daniel are just getting started, we had things like the one-armed handstand, the wheel. We had Johnny putting everybody in a cement truck and making them run, throwing Miguel in the pool and having him kick his legs. So we had these different lessons and things people are learning. In season 3, the big lessons that were being taught was Chosen teaching Daniel the extra secrets of Miyagi-Do. But in season 4, what was interesting is we had Cobra Kai teaching Miyagi-Do. We had Johnny learning Miyagi-Do, Daniel learning Eagle Fang stuff. So they were teaching each other their styles. And that was the teaching. So it's been a while since we've had new lessons or new moves taught, because in this season we have new teachers that are entering the field. One of them being chosen. So we have new lessons and people trying to integrate the styles of karate by doing things a little differently. Finally, there is a big theme of deception in season 5. We have characters who are not what they appear. There are people double-crossing other people and things not being what they appear. And so that is a big theme. We have, in the last season, we know that Silver deceived Kreese and got him arrested. So it started there, but that theme just continues and is throughout. And when you have a show like this where the stakes are so high, that kind of stuff is happening. People need to go behind enemy lines because the stakes are so high, and so they begin to have to do that to operate in the way that so that they can gain leverage in this all-important fight for the soul of the valley and beyond, because in this season we are thinking beyond the valley. This is your spoiler-free season 5 review. I hope that got you excited further for what is coming about. I believe I did it all without sharing any spoilers. And as you know, Cobra Kai season 5 drops on Friday, September 9th on Netflix. So you know what is coming up for my channel. I will be hosting a discussion with at least one fellow film critic. I might do more than one coming up. I also have, if you haven't seen them, I have discussion from season 4. I also have a scenes to review before Cobra Kai season 5. I will have a couple of things in the queue. I want to do a food guide, all the fights, not all the fights, but the top fights rated, and things to look for season 6, like things that I think will come about in season 6 those things will drop after season 5 drops. So I won't be dropping any of that stuff before the season. But I hope you have enjoyed this spoiler-free season 5 review, and I will see you next time on one of my stories. Bye!